The Giants are making a concerted effort to get younger. First, the Austin Slater trade, and now this.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Giants, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. My name is Ben Kasbeck, and on the show we provide daily episodes Monday through Friday, talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that's data-driven and rational, but also simple, passionate, and accessible to all. I'm a former contributor for the baseball statistics and analysis websites Beyond the Box Score and Rotographs. I've been podcasting about the Giants since 2015. I've been hosting this show for over 5 years, and I'm a lifelong Giants fan. Thank you for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, so check us out there if you have not already, and please hit that subscribe button wherever it is that you're following the show. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As playoffs wind down in other sports, the sports stop sportsing like I want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. And where we get started is I was just about to record this show when I got an email from the Giants media, from the Giants media department, I guess you would say. And many of the questions were, some of the questions were answered here. Questions about when will Wilmer Flores and Tyrus Estrada be activated? Well, today is the answer. They were both reinstated from the injured list. Blake Snell also returned from his rehab assignment and was reinstated from the injured list. And so that means you got to clear some major league roster spots, and you got to clear a 40-man roster spot for Snell. Or no, for who did they have to clear a 40-man? They didn't have to clear a 40-man. Never mind. They didn't have to clear a 40-man roster spot. But they needed to clear major league roster spots. And what they did was that they designated Nick Ahmed for assignment as part of this flurry of moves here. And they also optioned left-handed pitcher Colton Ingram, who was actually on the major league roster. He had just been claimed off waivers and then put on the major league roster kind of as, you know, an extra arm given all the bullpen action that they've been seeing lately. But the big news here is that Nick Ahmed gets designated for assignment. And so he was, I don't have the numbers like pulled up in front of me, but I'm pretty sure that he got the most starts out of anyone at shortstop so far this season. And yet here they are designating him for assignment. So why did they do this? What does this mean? Well, Nick Ahmed, if we just kind of look at the performance, he comes in 10th on the team in Fangraphs wins above replacement, but all of that coming really with his glove. His bat was about 30% below average, and he's also, you know, he is older. He is a veteran. He's 34 years old. He'll be 35 next March. And he was signed to a one-year kind of minor league, a one-year minor league contract. And so he's going to reach free agency at the end of the year. So, you know, 2 out of the last 3 days, they've gotten rid of veteran players who were struggling offensively, who were set to be free agents at the end of the year, in favor of some other players who are deserving of opportunity. Like in the outfield, Luis Matos, you know, he was playing anyway sometimes, but it certainly opens up more playing time for a Luis Matos. I also see I saw an avenue for Marco Luciano getting more playing time in the absence of Austin Slater, kind of somewhat confusingly, because it could mean Tyler Fitzgerald goes to the outfield, maybe against left-handed pitchers, and then Marco Luciano could go to shortstop in that event. And especially now, if you also don't have Nick Ahmed, it potentially creates that avenue as well for a Marco Luciano. So suddenly at the shortstop position, the Giants have gone quite young here, with Brett Wisely and Tyler Fitzgerald being the only players on the active roster. I guess Thairo Estrada as well, but that's the shortstop position right now. And so tonight, facing a left-handed pitcher, Yusei Kikuchi, the Giants will go with Tyler Fitzgerald at shortstop, and Brett Wisely not in the lineup because Thairo Estrada is back, and Estrada as a right-handed hitter Estrada's going to play like every day. So Wisely is kind of currently in a platoon role at shortstop where he's going to get the bulk of the playing time there for now. But they've also got Fitzgerald. They've also got on the 40-man roster 2 other young players in Marco Luciano and Casey Schmitt. Now, neither Luciano nor Schmitt has done well defensively at shortstop, whereas Brett Wisely and Tyler Fitzgerald, I think, have been a little more solid there. So Wisely is just 25 years old. Tyler Fitzgerald is 26 years old. And Luciano, I think, is 22. So I'm actually going to pull that up because it's significant that they're going... Luciano, is 22 years old. And Casey Schmitt is 25. So you've got a 22-year-old, a 25-year-old, 26-year-old, and a 25-year-old. Those are your kind of shortstop options on the San Francisco Giants. And so that's a commitment to being younger at this position. Now, granted, they went out and tried to sign and had a deal with Carlos Correa, and so things can change. This is the new circumstance here. But yeah, I think that I've seen enough out of Wisely to be at least as intrigued with him getting. I think he deserves playing time given his age and the potential future he has on this team, given that he's under team control for like forever, entered the year with less than a year of service time. So 6 years of team control, and same kind of deal for Tyler Fitzgerald, same kind of deal for Casey Schmitt, same kind of deal for Marco Luciano. Each of those guys has 6 years of team control. And so you're just going to kind of play around and see who stands out, and that, hope that one of those guys or a couple of those guys kind of prove they can lock down that position for the future. And so you need to figure that out heading into next year, because Nick Ahmed's clearly not the long-term answer there. And so, it was always somewhat likely that there was going to be a Nick Ahmed DFA at some point during the season, unless he was having just a really good bounce back year. And I think that Brett Wisely playing as well as he has is probably the main reason why this move was made. But also, Tyler Fitzgerald has done a nice job, and you want to see that kind of speed and athleticism that he brings on a somewhat more consistent basis. And so with Estrada back, you were looking at probably an Ahmed and Wisely platoon at short, and that kind of leaves Fitzgerald perhaps on the outside looking in, whereas they clearly want to just get a look at younger players. And if any of those guys gets hurt, Wisely or Fitzgerald, you do have Luciano and you do have Schmitt as well. And so it's a four young player deep kind of position for the Giants here. And so I understand this move completely. It was just caught me off guard a little bit to see it made today. And I didn't know that Flores and Estrada were both going to be activated today. Time flies. I didn't even know they had been on the injured list for 10 days. So anyway, this was intended to be a mailbag edition of the show. And coming up next, we're going to get to several of your mailbag questions, but I just thought I'd be doing everyone a disservice if I didn't talk about these rather significant. Snell being back is probably the most significant thing, and Flores and Estrada. But, Nick Ahmed being DFA'd and just what it means about this trend towards younger players getting more playing time, that's actually, to me, the most significant thing. So coming up in just a minute, we were going to talk about, and we still will, given that they traded away a struggling veteran like Austin Slater, are they going to do the same with other veteran players? Not Nick Ahmed, obviously, now, but other struggling veteran players. Might they be next to go? So we'll get into it in just a minute. And before we do, Today's episode is brought to you in part by FanDuel. I love sports. I love them so much that I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games, and the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open up the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most of your summer. I'm over on FanDuel.com right now and checking out the game tonight between the Giants and the Blue Jays. And the Giants are favorites in this game at actually they're underdogs in this game. That is surprising to me. I have a hard time with the American betting numbers. Minus 120. That means $120 bet is required to win 100. So that means that they are favorites. Whatever it is, you can check this out, and you probably know more than I do. But FanDuel has it all, and baseball is the best sport going because there's so many games all the time. So visit FanDuel.com and start making the most of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. All right, as promised, we're going to get to your mailbag questions. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers, tomorrow we will be breaking down Game 1 of this homestand that is going to put an end to the first half of the season with Blake Snell returning to the mound after missing another month with the same injury against Yusei Kikuchi, a left-handed pitcher. Giants, Blue Jays having a very disappointing year based on expectations for what they would do. They're 41-49, and so Giants should be favorites. That's why I was kind of tripped up a little bit there by the FanDuel odds, but I think I was just thinking incorrectly about that. But the Blue Jays are 20-25 on the road. Snell's return, there's going to be a lot to get into tomorrow. So are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Do you have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And a reminder that you can catch every pitch of the Giants' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app and search the word Giants. So yes, this was going to be exclusively a mailbag episode, but again, those roster moves were important to discuss. But getting right into the mailbag questions, we've got 4 questions that are related, and here they are. ZF Robin says, with Slater being traded away, do you think this could be a sign that other long-time underperforming players, Flores, Yaz, etc., could also be on their way out before the trade deadline? And then It's Lynn S says, when do the Giants let go of Wilmer? Dan says, do Conforto/Jackson/Flores /Yaz all survive the trade deadline? Why or why not? And then finally, Brendan says, when is Conforto being traded? Regardless of who, I'm having trouble reading today. Regardless of how we do it, if he has value, we need to move him. So there's a lot here. I'm going to go kind of one by one through these questions. In terms of, could Slater getting traded be a sign that long-time underperforming players? So when you say long-time, I'm not sure if you mean like veteran or if you mean like they've been underperforming for a long time, because I would push back on the notion that someone like Wilmer Flores, Wilmer Flores had the best season of his career last year. He was their best player by far offensively. And yeah, he struggled this year, but I just don't read that much, especially because he's been injured. I guess it wasn't that serious if he's already back, but there's not a clear and obvious like young player to give that playing time to. It's a little different at the shortstop position. Plus, there's this option on Flores for next year. He's not a free agent at the end of the year. There's first a player option, but then if he turns that down, there's a team option. And so the Giants can bring him back if they want to. And, I guess the next few months will be evaluation time for Flores, but I don't think he's going anywhere. He's too valuable, like in the clubhouse and potentially on the field. I guess if he just craters and continues to struggle in the next month or 3 weeks, there's a chance. And then in terms of Yastrzemski, I'm also not sure. Like, there's only so many young players you have who you want to give that playing time to, but it's not impossible to see them moving on from Yastrzemski. The one thing is, he does have another year of team control. The common thread here with Slater and Ahmed so far is that they're both free agents at the end of the year, whereas with Yastrzemski, there's another year left. And, he's come all the way back to where he's now been above Major League average by 1%. So like pretty much exactly average. But he's literally never been below average offensively in his career by weighted runs created plus. Not one season has he ever been below average. And then if we split it up by, right-handed pitching or left-handed pitching, we will find that he's consistently significantly better. He's been 20% above average offensively when facing right-handed pitching in his career. And again, never below average in a single season in his career against righties, which isn't surprising given that overall he's never been below average in his career. And so you add that with the defense that Yastrzemski provides, which is good, career plus 36 defensive runs saved, and plus 7 outs above average, more of the same this year in right field, especially also passable to good center fielder. I just don't know that either of those guys makes sense to trade away. And then the question, the next question was, when do the Giants let go of Wilmer? I just, I don't put that much more stock into 3 months of 2024. I don't weight that so heavily that it erases all of 2023. That's just not how I operate. I kind of look back at, and this is generally how teams evaluate players too, is you look at the last 3 seasons. You do weight the most recent season a little more heavily. And of course, you think about aging curves and all that. But, if you combine 2023 and 2024 for Flores, I think we'll find that the numbers are still going to look really good, or at least good. It's a 115 weighted runs created plus, 27 homers in 192 games, 258 average, which is like 20 points better than league average, just by the way, 330 on base, 445 slugging. He also plays a surprisingly good first base. He's not good anywhere else, but he's solid at first base, never really been bad there. Is bad elsewhere, but he can play first. And so I think he's that well liked and not a free agent at the end of the year that I don't see them just moving on from him, although it's possible, given what's going on here with Slater being traded and, Ahmed is not as good of a player as Flores, but it's possible, but I don't think it's going to happen. And then Dan with Conforto, Jackson, Flores, will Conforto, Jackson, Flores, and Yaz all survive the trade deadline? Why or why not? I think Flores and Yaz, I already said the answer. Jackson, I'm going to say no, because the struggles have been so consistent and so pronounced and he is a free agent at the end of the year. I think there's a club option for next year, but it's looking like a kind of no-brainer not to pick up that option. Luke Jackson, yeah, sure enough, $7 million club option with a buyout of $2 million, but that $2 million is, sunk cost. Making $6.5 million this season, but half the season has already passed, so making, roughly $3 million the rest of the year and then a $2 million buyout. So he's still owed about $5 million. Some have asked about his trade value. I don't see much trade value at all at a $5 million commitment for a guy who's really struggled, and you're just getting him for a couple months. But so I'm going to say Jackson doesn't survive the trade deadline. Not sure he gets traded. I think he's a possible DFA candidate when they need to open up 40-man spots for the likes of Alex Cobb and Robbie Ray. And in terms of Conforto, he's hitting third tonight against a left-handed pitcher. So the one scenario where I could see Conforto being traded is if they just fall apart and fall completely out of the race. But otherwise, I think he's kind of an important bat. And it's not exactly like they have an abundance of top outfield prospects banging down the door ready for more playing time. You've already got Ramos in there every day. Matos could be in there most days. Like, Conforto's having a pretty solid season, and he's hot right now. And, you know, he's like the only left-handed hitter in there against a left-handed pitcher tonight. Yeah, I mean, he's having offensively, he's doing pretty well, and is one of their more potent left-handed bats. And so if they're in contention at all, I think they probably just hold on to Conforto, who again is a free agent at the end of the year, but there's not someone who is an obvious replacement for that kind of production as a left-handed bat. So I think that I disagree with you, Brendan, about regardless of how we do, if he has value, we need to move him. I disagree. He's not going to have much value regardless because he's not great defensively and it's a rental situation. So you're not going to get much of anything in return because of the short timeline a team would be getting him for, the fact that he's not a superstar. He has more value to the Giants than he has to other teams at this point. So anyway, more questions and answers, including what do they do in the rotation when guys are healthy? Like, we've had this question all season long, but it's getting closer to being a reality. So we will address the question coming up in just a minute. And before we do, today's episode is brought to you in part by none other than Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps, on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000. And if you're looking for promotions, Prize Picks has you covered every week, including lowering select players' stat projections on Tuesdays to help your lineup hit. So I took advantage of this today, and they changed they're going to let me edit this. But anyway, Chris Sale, the original projection was 7 strikeouts, but it was lowered to 5.5. So I took the over, or more, I should say, on that. And I'm also taking Matt Chapman for more than half a total base tonight with a lefty on the mound. I just feel like that's and the way Chapman's been swinging the bat feels like a little bit of a no-brainer to me. So download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's all lowercase code LOCKEDONMLB on Prize Picks for a first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Today's episode is also brought to you in part by Tax Network USA. Here on Locked On Giants, we pride ourselves on getting you the latest news for your team. Whether it's the offseason, the draft, which is coming up, spring training, or the playoffs, it's year-round. You know what else is year-round? Collections season. Just because tax season is over doesn't mean the IRS will stop coming after you for unfiled taxes. The IRS can garnish your wages, levy your bank accounts, and even seize your property. Don't let the IRS target you. Let the licensed tax professionals and experts at Tax Network USA go to bat for you. With over 14 years of experience and an A+ rating by the Better Business Bureau, Tax Network USA has saved their clients over $1 billion in tax debt. Whether you owe taxes, have complicated matters that require tax planning like I do, or finally hit that parlay this season and need help correctly filing, like I didn't, call 1-800-549-1000 or visit tnusa.com/lockedon. And be sure to mention Locked On Giants at checkout, and you'll receive a $250 discount off their services. All right, here we go. We're going to get to some more questions and answers. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers tomorrow breaking down game 1 of this big homestand to finish out the first half of the season prior to the All-Star break. Giants, go like 5-1 or something, and that would go a long way towards getting them back into the thick of this race. They've kind of slipped a little bit, in part because other teams above them have been playing well. Giants kind of held serve on a tough road trip, but they still lost some ground because the teams ahead of them in playoff positions have been pulling away a little bit. And so the Giants need to get hot and go on a run of their own. Just a reminder that right after the game, check out Postcast with Eric Engel on Locked On Sports San Francisco on YouTube. Instant reaction right after the game, live. You can comment, give your takes on the game that you just watched. And it's just a great service that we offer here on Locked On Giants. And then that feed gets put on the Locked On Giants podcast feed on, everywhere else but YouTube, because it's not going to be on this YouTube channel because it has its own YouTube channel, Locked On Sports San Francisco. So subscribe and hit the bell notification button to get notified when Eric goes live after the games. And a reminder that you can catch every pitch of the Giants' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app and search the word Giants. All right, so Brian says, say we get a healthy rotation of Webb, Snell, Ray, Cobb, and Harrison. We have 8 bullpen slots. Rogers times 2, Doval, Walker. Who are the other 4? And so I'm just going to mention right off the bat, you forgot about Jordan Hicks. So right off the bat, we're talking, there's another pitcher, So I would there's a chance that certainly some of the mailbag questions are about Jordan Hicks and does he go to the bullpen? I don't know. I think there's a chance. He has not done as well lately as he did to start the season. And so to kind of preserve his arm a little bit, there's a chance that he does move to the bullpen. I think they cross that bridge when they come to it. But, say the rotation is what you said it was, and then that Hicks is in the bullpen. So then Rogers, Doval, Walker, and Jordan Hicks, although I'm not convinced that Hicks will move to the bullpen. It could be Kyle Harrison, for all we know, to save his arm. So, and then also there's Hayden Birdsong, but of course he could be optioned. So Rogers, Doval, Walker, and let's say Hicks. So then there's 3 other spots. So that's where I think Luke Jackson is expendable. You've also got Tristan Beck and Keaton Wynn kind of lurking on the injured list. But currently I think you probably want another lefty in there. And whether it's Eric Miller or it's Alex Young, I would say, there's a chance Alex Young gets that spot over Eric Miller down the stretch as a veteran who's kind of been there, done that, versus Miller, although Miller has big stuff and you could definitely see him. And then I think Randy Rodriguez and Sean Jelly are the other 2. So Luke Jackson would become an odd man out there. Jelly, if he's kind of your last guy in your pen, he's had a nice season, and Randy Rodriguez too. Like those 2 guys are worth giving looks to. So that's where I go there. And relatedly, Dan says if Snell, Ray, and Cobb all return by August, Snell's back today, but we'll see if he's here still in August. It's been just an injury-ravaged season for him. Who does Melvin keep in the rotation with Webb? Hicks, Harrison, or Birdsong? Who moves into the pen? Who goes to Sacramento? So I think, again, it's probably evaluation time for Birdsong. He just will keep making those starts as long as he keeps pitching pretty well, which he has. I've been very impressed, and he's 22, and that's exciting. But, if Snell, Ray, there's a chance the Giants could trade a starter when all is said and done. Like, I don't think they trade a Birdsong or a Harrison, but you could trade, Alex Cobb, for example. But will they do it? I mean, it probably depends on, do Harrison and Birdsong pitch really well down in the last 3 weeks. And so I think most likely, though, Birdsong would be the optioned player, although it could be Harrison if he struggles. He was doing well until this first start back from the injured list. So, and then again, I think Hicks is definitely a candidate to go into the bullpen, at least to give his arm a break, just from throwing too many innings. But I don't think he wants to go to the bullpen. So Harrison is also a candidate to possibly go to the bullpen to save his arm as well. So Webb, Snell, it's hard to keep track of all the pitchers they have, which is funny because they've also had this problem where they don't have enough pitching, but suddenly they could have too much. It's just been one or the other. They have tons of pitchers or they have no pitchers. It's kind of how it seemed this season. But they haven't yet had the problem of tons of pitchers, but that could definitely come up in the next few weeks here. So I think I answered that question. It's just hard to keep track, but I think obviously Webb and Snell, I think, and Robbie Ray and Alex Cobb. And then I would keep probably, I don't know. You could just go with whoever. Hicks, Harrison, Birdsong, any one of those three, just depending on who's pitching well. It just depends on who's pitching well at the time when they have to make the decisions. So that's how I see it. But it is worth keeping in mind. They have to clear 40-man spots and major league roster spots if and when they activate guys from the 60-day IL, and that includes Cobb and Robbie Ray. Anyway, that is all the time we have for today. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers, tomorrow, breaking down Yusei Kikuchi versus Blake Snell. It's an intriguing matchup of lefties. Snell making his return. Hopefully he can get on that kind of patented second half Snell run starting tonight, and then he could stay healthy. We'll see. Hasn't gone that way so far this year for sure. So anyway, Locked On also has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Once again, my name is Ben Kaspick. Check me out on Twitter at Ben Kaspick, Kaspick. If you like this show, please consider rating it or leaving a review. It helps me out a lot, so thank you in advance, and thank you to everyone who's done so already. I can't wait to be with you again tomorrow. Thanks again for listening. Today, you are now Locked On Giants.